This is Janee J. Baugher, and the title of this poem is Andrew Wyeth's Footnotes to Pennsylvania Landscape, 1942. An aged buttonwood presides over this valley, late autumn. A tangle of branches, scarcely any leaves. Can a tree swell with pride? Farmhouses of stone in the distance. A road that cannot be tracked, for it disappears as it dips and curves away. Landscape. Land plus escape. A blank canvas without human. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. Thoreau. The Susquehanna River, a bright splash of electric white. Drink from the river. Breathe a word to no one. Breathe for no one. In the land of possibility, you must imagine what lay ahead. The sky, a cold yellow, white, and gray, before the periwinkle of blue hope. Happiness is like a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it will evade you. Thoreau. Honor the thick heart of place and years disguised as rings. Notice what radiates from the center out. Trees can teach you how the world works. Tempera. Raise your own chickens. Always crack an egg into a separate bowl. Thank the chickens. Aperi oculos tuos. Jade, fatigue, graphite, Arctic, saddle, rye, brick, cerulean, tar, bronze. It's curiosity, mostly. I want to know, but I don't know intellectually the thing that puzzles me. And so I go to the page with the sense of an exploration. And why poetry specifically is I love exploring my language through the sounds and letting the sounds of the words take me through that journey of writing across the page in that space of not knowing. And so I've never been one to want to write a story or to write the reality of things. I'm also interested in just exploring my imagination insofar as it leads me through my language and the fluidity of the sound. So I'm an ekphrastic poet. I have my newest book is a guidebook for creative writers called the Ekphrastic Writer. And so ekphrasis is a term we use to categorize poems or prose that were influenced by the visual arts. And so my favorite thing to do is visit a museum or a gallery and find a piece that just startles me, and a piece for which I am so curious about. I'm curious about exploring what it is on an unconscious level. I think about it. So that's usually what prompts me to the page is some piece of visual art. And so this is going to be my third collection of poems. I decided to just focus on one visual artist. So for this newest work in progress, I'm just focusing on the artwork of American painter Andrew Wyeth. And so I have about 100 poems that I'm working on right now. And as I finish them up, then I send them to magazines. And so this was one that was recently published in Green Mountain Review. And again, this poem was based on his painting called Pennsylvania Landscape. Yeah, so what I like to teach my students, which is also something that I adopt, is this 4-stage writing process. So the first stage is generating ideas, and how do you do that? How do you squelch the conscious mind or the intellectual brain in order to make the unconscious mind or the center of your imagination shine? And one of the best ways I have found personally to do that is the technique of free writing, where you're writing very quickly, you're writing freely without stopping, without allowing the censor in your head to obstruct that flow of language. And it feels like a risk for new writers because it's difficult to trust what's coming out without pre-thinking. So I help to train my students how to be deft at writing freely, free writing. And then the second stage, once you have the ideas, is drafting. So you say, okay, great, I have a direction now. I have some sort of idea that I'm working toward. I have an image or I have some sound resonance. So now I can start to draft that out. And then the third stage I teach is revision. So then you find the structure, and you find the point of view, and you rearrange, the strophes or the stanzas. And then the last stage, of course, is editing, where you're looking at, spelling and syntax and punctuation. Well, I would remind readers of poetry, especially new readers, to remember that these poems were born from the writer's imagination, which is to say that that's the best place as readers for us to come to the page, is from that space of imagination. So poetry is not a code to be broken. It's an experience. You can't actually say what a poem is about. It's an experience unto itself, like any work of art. And so if you go to the page with that freedom of, okay, this writer used her imagination, and therefore I'm also free to use my imagination, I think it really is a beautiful symbiotic relationship that then the reader has with both the poem and the author. Yeah, so when I was a student in graduate school, I was looking for other poets who wrote ekphrastically. And in my library, I found a book by a poet named Peter Cooley. He's an American poet, and he has a collection that came out in '87 called The Van Gogh Notebook, in which he wrote poems to the artwork of Vincent van Gogh. And he's got a poem in this collection called Olive Trees in a Mountain Landscape, and that's the same title of the Vincent van Gogh painting. And I love this poem so much. I have to tell you that I have a new favorite poem every week, but this week it's Peter Cooley's poem Olive Trees in a Mountain Landscape. Yes. Dr. Peter Elbow, wrote an essay called Free Writing. And that is an essay I use in every one of my classes to help students freely go to the page. And without his essay, I don't know that I would have found my creative process. And so I am indebted to him, Peter Elbow.